Starting a few minutes late, but let's start the workshop for Thursday, February 11, 2021. We have 4 agenda items tonight. Let's start right out with our 5:30 discussion on utility pricing. Fixed versus variable pricing with, am I pronouncing this correct? Entheos?
Good, that's perfect.
Thank you. Entheos Energy. Dave's, take it away.
Well, good evening, Board. Thank you again for inviting us in. I just wanted to start off with saying that the recovery/audit that I was here last time and spoke to you folks about is in processing. So that's the good news. Lily's team at TRI has been in contact with Paul a few times on a couple different things, and it's going forward. So hopefully, like I mentioned last time, 1 or 2 things will happen. Either we'll get you some money back that you erroneously paid, or it'll come back with nothing, and that means you guys have been paying your bills perfectly on time and without any erroneous activities going on. I'm here today with my, I'm going to call him my friend and boss. I guess I'd call him somewhat of my boss, partner. We're representing today Entheos Energy. We're a utility brokerage for large commercial industrial brokering. Dave Pagoda here is the owner, a longtime friend for, 40 years now. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Dave because he is the expert on all this. And what we want to do, obviously, is help save the town some money going forward with a volatile market in the utility industry. So I'm going to pass it over to Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Hello, town board. We met a couple weeks ago with Mr. Flaherty and Paul, and walked over, kind of went through the history of what was going on with how the town of Webster was purchasing electricity and natural gas. My name again is Dave Pagoda. I own a company, Entheos Energy. All we do is we broker electric and natural gas supply. So for those that aren't familiar, somewhat familiar I would imagine, you have a choice in who you can buy your supply from. In this town, RG&E delivers it. You don't have a choice. Whatever the state says they can charge you for delivery, that's what they charge you. On the supply side, there's about 300 plus companies who can sell you electric and natural gas supply. Okay, you say, wow, that's a lot of companies. It certainly is. They come in all different shapes and sizes. So for the past almost 10 years, for our clients, we gather their information, we put together all their usage, and we put it out to bid. And we send it out. Out of those 300 companies, we put out about 25 of them we include in the bid. The reason why we include 25, those 25, they don't have bait and switch pricing. We've gone through all their contracts. These are financially stable companies. They passed the litmus test for us, and they warrant to get pricing from. So that's what we do. So we take it. We don't work for any one of those particular energy companies. On any given day, any one of them could have the best possible price. Okay? I'll take a step back. There's 2 ways that you can purchase from those companies on the supply side. One is variable. It fluctuates every month. RG&E sells a variable product, as do all utility companies. The difference between a variable and a fixed rate, there's about 23 different components. I'll talk about electric quickly, and I'll get to the point here. Sorry, I'm long-winded. But there's about 23 components that make up your supply cost for electric. One of those is the actual electricity that was generated. The other components, it's extremely difficult to track. There's line loss. I could go over all 23 and we'd all sit there going, what are you talking about? There are things that are tough to track. When we put a client's bid, put it out to the suppliers, when we ask for a full fixed price, and what that means is they'll guarantee, they actually go out and buy a block of energy for the next 12, 24, 36, 60-month period, and they actually purchase that up front based on today's market pricing. They know they're competing in a bid, so any of the fat that's in there, it really gets whittled down. They have to make a decision on all those components on what they're going to purchase it for. They buy a future, and they lock in that price. The other way to do it is to buy on the market. It changes every month. It's extremely volatile. You guys have been purchasing for the past, looks like since 2013 with Fluid Energy. You were on a variable product. Some years you did good, some years you didn't do so good. We happen to be going through right now with a change in administration and all the talk about the Green Energy Act and everything that's going on. There's, let's put it this way, the likelihood of pricing going down from where it's currently at, we're about a 20-year historic low right now with electric and natural gas supply. They really can't pull gas out of the ground any cheaper than they're doing it right now, so it's not going any lower. When you start talking about green energy and elimination of fossil fuels, which are used to generate electricity in the majority of the country right now, we're going to see, again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you what the suppliers think when they go out and purchase it. That pricing is right now is still available at a near market low, okay? And that's what we put together and we showed you. We pulled down, I've got the top three here, and it shows you what's available on a fixed term, on a 12, 24, 36, up to 60-month pricing. And you could say, man, last year, if you look at last year's pricing, it was extremely low based on the last administration and everything they did to deregulate the industry, the energy industry. The average rate last year per kilowatt hour, you guys were at almost 2.4 cents. Looking at Paul's numbers, he pulled them off. And that's your average rate. And that's low. That's really low. You say, why would I want to go in and leave and entertain locking in something that it's at 4 cents or 4.2 cents? If you look back at your history and prior administrations, you were up at 5.5 cents, 5.2 cents, 6.2 cents in 2016. So it's really, we deal with several hundred clients around Monroe County, Ontario County. Out of all those clients, we don't have one who purchases on a market-based pricing. A couple of them will buy 50% of it variable and 50% they'll lock in. But if you go to any of the big companies in town, the Wegmans of the world, who one of their stores does 3 times as much as you guys do in a year with all 64 of your facilities, they don't buy on a variable rate. Constellation brands, you pick any large account. Most cities and towns, we deal with City of Geneva, Ontario, they have locked into full fixed pricing. And the reason is, again, it comes down to volatility. If you guys can stomach, if this year the rate's double and you've budgeted for a 2.5 cent rate, because that's what it was last year for supply, it could easily come back at 5 cents this year, and sitting there going, wow, where'd this extra come from? And it's basically the market. So we can provide a supply that's on a variable rate. All these suppliers offer it. I have no problem doing it, and by switching from Fluent, we could actually take you guys back where you have control. Right now, you don't even have access. We had to get copies of your bills it took us almost over a month to get them. We couldn't get it from RG&E because you guys had been purchasing through Adam Bellows in Monroe County for 7 years. The contract had actually expired a couple of years ago. Nobody renewed it there. No one cared about the town of Webster. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. The bills come and you pay them. It's my electric bill. It's my gas bill. I have to. So just wanted to, again, what we do is we put it out to bid. We present the numbers, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Just to explain, the town has been purchasing through our gas and electric through a Monroe County contract for at least 7 years or so, and it's called Fluent Energy, but it's a Monroe County contract, and there are many local governments that are part of that consortium. So I did contact Fluent Energy and asked them if they were looking to lock in at a fixed price, and they said no, they were going to stay with the variable price. That's just the way their contract works. So there seems to be a lot of risk that the prices are going to rise for sure, because we're at all-time lows right now.
One more thing on the variable versus full fixed rate. The supply companies, all these companies would much rather sell you a variable rate, because, you know, 1 month it's 2.5 cents, next month it's 4.5 cents. And there's no right, I mean, you can track the energy cost, but the other components you can't. So the profit they make off of a variable rate is greater than a fixed rate, because they have to actually go out and purchase that block on that day for the next period of time, whatever you lock in for. So, just a side note.
Because I was in this meeting, and it was 2 weeks ago? And
3 or 4.
Was it 3 weeks ago? And I think what we put into the town board's packets, unfortunately you guys got my chicken scratch notes, but what was interesting then was that based on the town's usage of whatever, 3,886,000, is that ohms, kilowatts, whatever?
Kilowatt.
Thank you, Dave.
Very good.
If we were in a variable last year when the prices were low, and if we were paying 3 cents, it cost the town 116 grand. Where if we got into this fixed cost, then comparatively it would have cost 166,000. We would be getting into something that would have cost $50,000 more, and the community would be calling for our heads for that fiscal vote. Now, when the rates, if they go up to 6 cents, and we locked in at 4, then we just saved the town $60,000 or $80,000 that year. That's the game we're in right here, and it's not an easy one to. You know, I happen to think that what they have said to us is probably true. John, you said rates are going to go up.
I agree.
You know, who knows? But right now, and Paul, correct me, and I'm just trying to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. In a way, you can't, because variable versus fixed is different. But the rate that we're paying currently on the variable with the county plan is under 3 cents.
Yeah, for electric, it averaged .024 for 2020.
2.4 cents.
Yeah.
Okay.
But 7 years ago, it was .0542.
What was that, Paul? 0.0452?
.0542. It was 5.4 cents.
All right.
So,
It's gone down 3 cents in 7 years.
and I'm just calling a spade here. Locking into the fixed at today's price, and you brought the new one and handed out, because like you said, the bid price is different from 3 weeks ago to today. It's
Bid price
daily.
changes daily.
For instance, and I don't want to get too granular,
Go ahead.
when they came 3 weeks ago, I was kind of surprised that the 12-month fixed was lower rate on watts than the 24-month. I thought that maybe if you locked in for a longer period of time, they might give you a better deal. You said, well, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Well, now you hand us this, and it looks like 12, 24, and 60. It's more commensurate with what I would have thought. The fixed rate goes down from 12 to 24 and continues to go down to 60, which makes sense to me. Just in the economics of things, but it does not. I mean, just so the board understands that that's a gamble.
It's a gamble.
Because at 2.4 cents right now, locking in for a year or 6 or 5 years at 4.2 cents, based on our $3.8 million of usage. I mean, you're talking about going from 110,000 in electric costs for the town up to 170,000. And we look like boobs. Can I say that? Yeah, I can say that, right? Where, like I said, in a couple of years, if what we think is the trend, and all of a sudden that megawatt is variable at 7 cents, well, we look like we're heroes. Because certainly, comparatively, the town is locked in at 4 cents and, saved the town in future years. The 3% delta on that's $100 grand a year on that wattage usage. So, I hope I didn't just confuse the issue.
No,
Tom, can I?
show what it is, it's a
Can I add
gamble.
a couple things? When Paul gave us the historical usage since you've been with Fluent, we averaged out those years, and the average of those years obviously accumulated, came out to the same pricing that we're offering today over the course of those years you went on that variable rate with Fluent. Okay, that's going back, obviously, when the rates were high, then through, again, like David mentioned, the last administration, it went low again because of regulations and whatnot, and then now we're at a stake in the road, or a fork in the road, where we're not sure what's gonna happen, but odds are it's gonna go up. A couple of things that we do is, unlike Fluent did, we work for you guys. We're gonna, whatever term you decide to go with, we're looking at pricing months in advance to be able to get you folks into a best rate possible going forward. We don't work for the utility company and or the ESCOs, energy supply company, we work for you guys. Okay, and what that's gonna give you is a couple of things. A peace of mind, obviously, knowing that you're not gonna pay more than, 4.2 cents a kilowatt for the next 12, 24, or 60
Well,
months.
it helps in budgeting, there's no question
And
about
that
that.
was gonna be B,
Yeah.
was that now you folks can budget your
Yeah.
budget on your utilities, knowing that that's gonna stay there for the term that you get into. And again, we work for you folks. We look ahead of, months ahead before that term is up and say, okay, listen, town, here's what we can get you future locked into at this rate once this contract is up going forward. And obviously, we want a long-term agreement with you folks, but we're gonna do what's best for you guys, which in turn is best for us.
Guys, unless because we're falling a little bit behind on the schedule here, so we're gonna tie this up, but I can assure you that, with Paul and the board, we'll have to figure something out. When I say figure something out,
Ask you a
we're either,
question?
sure,
So we're paying 2.4 cents per kilowatt hour right now, right?
That's what you paid on average last year.
On average for 2020.
So I'm looking at, depending on our terms, you're going 4.25 cents, 4.219 at 24, 4.21 for 60 months, right?
Yep.
So how did you come up with those numbers?
I don't come up with them, we put it out to bid.
And that's what the bids came back.
Those are the responses from,
Okay.
from the suppliers.
yeah.
All right.
So we put out a bid, sent out to 25 people, these are the top 3.
Wow.
So, look, if we're ever
I
gonna
think
do
they're
something,
looking-
I will tell you this.
They're looking at the tea leaves too.
It makes no sense to do it for 1 year. Why would you do it for 1 year? And, if you're gonna take the gamble, you'd go out to 5 years.
Right.
Because there's no benefit doing it 1 year, because we're already,
Right.
unless the prices just skyrocket over a 3-month period, why would you lock into $50,000 more in cost?
I think the prices will go up gradually, I would think.
Yeah, so that's something we'll have to consider too.
No.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that can,
Yep.
that can drive that.
So, guys, thank you. Say that again?
The thing that I think maybe Paul could look into is what Fluent is charging folks on that variable rate currently.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you just
February
did a bid
2021.
here, maybe the delta's not 1.8 cents from 2.4 to 4.2. Maybe the delta is, we're paying 3 cents right now.
Exactly.
You know, Thanks, guys. All right.
Interesting, thank you.
Dave.
I think it's 5:53. I bet you we can catch up a little bit on this agenda. Because, well, first of all, I have to say that for anybody watching at home and for the people in attendance, I apologize. A lot of insights at the meeting is lost when Deputy Supervisor Patty Cataldi is not here. You're stuck with us four guys. Wow. Anyway, hopefully, maybe we'll get somebody who gives some insights like Patty usually gives. But look, was it 1 month ago we first broached at the workshop the concept of the extension of the supervisor's term from 2 years to 4 years, and then concept two, the term limit of the supervisor at
Correct.
3 terms to 12 years. And Attorney Genesi will probably be the star of the show here, because a month ago he dropped a couple of revelations, at least on me, is that the two different ways you can go about this. One is local.
Well, I'll explain it,
Yes.
yes. There are two different ways. One of them is the town board can pass a resolution placing on the ballot this November a referendum to town residents to extend the supervisor's term to 4 years. That has to be done 150 days prior to the election or earlier. So I believe whenever the election is in November, so it would be sometime in May, maybe the first meeting in May before that. The other means of seeking a change in the term of the supervisor is by home rule message, which is something I think you're all familiar with, where the town board would effectively pass a resolution asking the state legislature to pass the law. That would also go to referendum. However, that could be done on much less notice, number one. Number two, that could be in effect, I guess I skipped one thing, that could be in effect this coming election. If it's done by resolution, 150 days out, it would not take effect until the following election. So therefore, if it was done this year by resolution, placed on the ballot, and if it passed, it would not be effective until 2023. If it's done by home rule legislation, the state legislature permits it, it goes on the ballot this year. We don't have to have, there's much less notice, which I won't get into right now, but it's not 150 days out. It would go on the ballot as a referendum, and it would take effect if we wanted to this year. Therefore, the supervisor, if it passed,
Yeah.
right, correct.
And,
Now, I won't get into the term limits right yet.
right, let's break it that one, because concept two is the term limit. So let's start with that one, and
Sure.
I can tell you, write it down, cut my finger in blood, have me sign it. I have no interest in this board, and maybe the other four feel differently about this, of getting a referendum on the November 21 ballot that whoever wins the election for supervisor would start January 1st, 2022, a 4-year term. I have no appetite for that. I do have an appetite for, on the November 23 election, that winner of the supervisor election would start on January 1st, 2024 as a 4-year term. The referendum for that, I would love to see it on the November 21 ballot. And if the town's people voted in, it would not go into effect until the November of 23 election for the January 24 term.
That's
Is that correct?
That's correct, right.
And
The other one could,
I rest my case.
Yeah, the other one, the home rule, could also be done anytime. You could have a special election. I mean,
Right.
that's not bound to the November election. The resolution passed 150 days or more prior to the election is only for the general election.
And Charlie, I gotta tell you something, apparently when we talked about this on January 14th, people do watch our workshops, because I've seen some comments and some whatever, and I've kind of found them kind of comical that They said, the town board's talking about this, and this is the problem with COVID. The public's not able to come in and talk about this with them. The public should have a say on whether we're going to have the term extended from 2 to 4 years. Did anybody really listen? They would have a say. They would vote
They
in
absolutely
November,
would.
right?
There would be a direct vote. So it's about, you
Right.
can't get more of a say
We
than
can
that.
have any more input.
Last time we spoke, when you're posing this to the public's credit, it is confusing. Okay, you're talking about a referendum that's going to start 1 year and another year. So I'm glad we're talking about this again tonight to add some clarity to it. I'm definitely a proponent of allowing the citizens of Webster to vote on this. That way, their voices can be heard individually. I have no problem with going from 2 years to 4 years. Never have. I thought there's a number of municipalities in New York State that have done that. But I think, in all fairness, it should be put out to the residents to vote on it.
Well, let's be clear on this. Either way, it goes to a vote.
Yes.
Right.
Either way. The only difference being is, one is a referendum that if it passes,
Right.
it takes immediate,
Yeah.
I don't know, what word am I looking for? Effect. Takes
Yes,
immediate
right.
effect as of the first
It
of the
takes
year.
effect as of the election.
That-
As of that-
The other
as
one-
opposed to the future election.
The other
2024.
one, it puts it off for 2 years.
And I think that's
So what
that's the
what
way to
that
go.
does, by putting it off
Right.
for 2 years, it takes away any of the inference
Of
that there's
self-serving.
anyone on this board
Right.
that is looking to further their election status
Right.
by doing so. But either way, our residents are gonna make that decision. It's gonna be voted on either way. So there's, whatever we decide we wanna do, the residents are gonna have the ultimate say.
Right. I think the right thing to do is to put it out to 2024, in my opinion.
Voted on in November of
Correct.
21.
Right.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Bill?
I have no thought one way or the other, it doesn't matter to me, I think a 2-year term, the way it is fine. Every 2 years, the public votes. I mean, I don't see a need to have a 4-year term, but if it's so desired by the board to put it out there, I'm fine with that.
Well, the beauty of this is that if the board puts it out there and the citizens come back and 90% shut it down, then Bill, your thoughts were representative of the citizens. You are a man of the people.
I don't see either way, which way it matters.
We've
Yeah.
talked about this in private, and I don't believe we've ever talked about it in public, but I think there's been private conversations amongst board members over the years where we talked about the fact that a 2-year term for a supervisor, especially a new supervisor, really doesn't give him a chance or her a chance to really get into the job. 2 years, because you're 1 year learning, and the next year, you're almost, within 6 months of that, you're campaigning.
Right.
So would there be a benefit to the position to have it a 4-year term? I believe it would be a benefit to have the position a 4-year term. But that's not for me to decide. That's for the residents to
Yes.
decide.
Right.
So, we could present it as a referendum at the next election, just as a matter of fact. Is it what the residents think is the correct way to operate or not?
I agree.
And I will say, I said we'd catch up on time. I think we still will. On concept 2, because we're not making any decisions tonight. I'm glad we're having another discussion on it, because sooner or later we'll have to decide in May or whatever the thing that you said, Charlie. But it's only February. On the term limits, I took the opportunity when I got here today to go along the back wall with all the nice pictures of all the supervisors that have held the position over this since Webster was formed. And I decided to only go back to 1936, which is 85 years ago, by the way. Do you know that we've had 11 supervisors in the last 85 years? 11. Their average terms were 7.27 years. Robert Whitner, 10 years. Sydney Barnum, 8 years. I'm sorry for their relatives, these are back in the 40s. Harold Barnum, 10
Garnham.
years. Now that we get modern, Walter Bradley, who the sewage treatment plant is named after,
Yep.
8 years. Ed Seitz, 6 years. William Lochner, 2 years. Irving Kent, 6 years. Adrian Stanton, 6 years. Henry Kiava, 2 years. Catherine Thomas, 12 years. Ronald Nesbitt, 14 years. The 12 years that I said might make sense if it's a 4-year term and 3 terms out, certainly over the last 85 years wouldn't have been problematic. And I've heard some people say that we don't need a term limit because you'll get voted out when it's time to go. So, after looking at the last 85 years of history, I'm less adamant, if you want to call it, about getting a referendum for term limit as I am about the first concept, which is extending it from 2 to 4. And I am biased on this because having sat in this seat for the last 13 months, and I'm ready to go back out and campaign, but man, Art's here, Joe's here, you're busy in this job. To do it the right way, you are busy. And to have to go out and collect money in campaigns from the citizens every 2 years, actually it's kind of insulting, in my opinion, to have to do that to citizens every 2 years. It makes more sense to me every 4 years. But like I said, that's my opinion. Bill gave his opinion. The citizens would ultimately vote on it, and what do the citizens say? 15,000 come out to vote in a non-presidential year, and I don't know, how does it work on a referendum? Do you got to win by 5% on a yes versus no? Or is it just
No, it's a referendum.
vote for vote?
Simple vote.
Simple
No,
vote.
there's no percentage.
Majority.
Just
Okay.
majority, right.
But that's all I got to say about the term limit.
Well, Mr. Supervisor, the term limit is not referendum. That's something a town board can do by itself. Just to clarify that.
Great. Well,
I don't personally see any reason for a term limit. I'm not seeing it where it was a problem.
the 85 years I just gave show that it wasn't.
I don't think it's really even necessary. Term limits are decided at the polls.
I agree. But anyway,
Well, then move on.
we've had our second conversation. We caught up a few minutes. It's 6:06. And wait a minute. Can I blow right by your sewer plant presentation? Art?
You did. No.
No,
No.
no.
Oh, I'm
It's
looking
at
at
6 o'clock.
6
You
o'clock.
know what? Because I'm looking at the January 14th. I had my notes from when we did the first referendum. Sorry. Let me close that file. Art, you are up.
Fantastic. So I am here to discuss the sewer department to release a RFQ for engineering services at the Bosberg pump station for mechanical work. So in your packet, you should have some pictures. Hopefully they're in the same order to follow along, but if not, there's not too many. So it's a little background of Bosberg pump station down on Bosberg Road. It is the town's largest pump station by far. It is all of 40 years old. Talking to Barry, the electronics were updated at
Around 15 years ago.
around 15 years ago. And we're starting to see some mechanical issues at the pump station. So we start with the photo numbered 1, 2, and 3. Those are our largest pumps. They are in the ground floor, which is about 20 feet below grade. Pump 1 has been, even in my short tenure, we've rebuilt this pump in-house. Pump 2 is brand new in the last 3 years, and Pump 3 is aged.
Is
Pump
what?
3 is what?
It's definitely aged. It's an
Aged.
older pump. The reason we're here is the isolation valves for these pumps are failing and have failed. Not all of them, some of them. Our pump number one is full of rags, which is not normally a big deal. Go ahead.
What's an isolation valve?
It stops the flow of anything, in this case sewage, getting past a point.
It's like a gate valve, sort of?
It's like a gate valve.
Okay.
Correct. So our pump number one is full of rags, flushable wipes, and so forth. The guys went to pull that off thinking the gate valve had closed. It had not. They pulled the pump and they are showered in sewage. Immediately slammed that back on, and that pump is now out of service. This station routinely runs, all the time on one, routinely runs on two pumps. To compound that, our pump number three, we are waiting for some parts. It is still online because we have to have it online. Its efficiency is probably at 50% or less. So, if you go to the next picture, I tried to label a few items. You've got the intake valve. On the left, you have the check valve. And on the right with that arrow, that is the main discharge pipe for this station. All the pumps pump into that, and it forces it north out towards Vosburg Road. The third picture, which shows just a pump, that is our pump number one. The valve to the lower right, the red handle valve, is the one that's failed. Again, over 40 years old, none of the valves have been
So
replaced.
that valve makes it so you can work on the pump, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The valves, 2 years ago, we put in the budget to replace some of the valves and check valves. The check valves are obsolete. I cannot get parts for them. And the valves are obsolete. So there is no fixes or repairs for these. Along with these mechanical repairs, replacing all the valves and check valves, one of the other issues is, if you look at your photo with the green pipes, these green pipes enter the discharge pipe just before it leaves the building. These green pipes are now, again, obsolete. They were used in the past to pump chemical into the system. The connection point between the green pipe and the discharge pipe, it's rotting. They are halfway rotted through. For the past year, we have been spraying them with rust inhibitor and galvanized paint. When these rot off, there's no stopping the flow. We have no way of isolating that and stopping that flow. There's no valve between the pipe and those, between the discharge pipe and those green pipes. There's just no way of stopping it. One other area of concern, your last photo of the pipe going through the wall.
That's the discharge pipe?
No,
No,
that is a suction pipe.
it's suction.
So
That's intake pipe.
it's the intake pipe, exactly. So each of the pumps have an intake pipe from a huge wet well on the other side of the wall.
Okay.
This has been leaking, which is indicative of rot. We were lucky, we were able to inject some expandable epoxy into this as a Band-Aid, stop the leak coming in. Again, just a Band-Aid. So, any questions at that point?
Each one of
On
the
your-
pumps has an intake?
Each one of the pumps has an intake,
Like
each
this
one of the
one.
pumps has an isolation valve, each one of the pumps has a check valve, each one of the pumps has a discharge isolation valve.
So on one side of the valve, what you call isolation valve, on one side of that is the pump, and
Correct,
on the other side is the intake, the flow that comes into it,
correct.
and there's no way to turn that off to replace that valve.
Because the gate valve on the intake won't shut down.
Won't shut.
What I'm saying is the valve that needs to be replaced, how do you shut off the flow to that?
Well, that's what we're gonna talk
You have to
about.
bypass pump it.
Well,
That's, there's nothing mechanical there to do that?
no,
Okay.
No. So that's issue number one. Don't forget issue number two. When these green pipes, and these are halfway rotted through, they're gonna go.
Art, how long ago did you put the epoxy on the intake?
Over the summer.
Was that the first time that had been done, or had been done
Yes.
before that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the issues. Supervisor was down for a tour along with Paul Adams and Patty Cataldi when I took these pictures. So there's absolutely a way to change one valve. Absolutely a way. The piece of apparatus to do it is almost $8,000. That's just for, they put a balloon in, they tap it, they put a balloon in the pipe, stop the flow,
Replace the valve.
replace the valve. That's only for the intake. That's $8,000 just for that piece of equipment. Doesn't include labor, doesn't include anything else. Everything in there is the same vintage. We
Except
could,
number pump 2, right?
number 3. I'm sorry, number 1.
I thought you said number 1 was rebuilt, number 2
Number two is the one that's rebuilt.
was a newer one. No?
Number 2 is new.
Okay.
Number 1 was rebuilt, but
Rebuilt.
number 1 is what's stuffed with rags.
Right.
Yeah, so that's one we can't get to. So, can we replace each of the intake valves? You betcha. We can do that. That doesn't help us with the issue of the leaking check valves that are obsolete and we can't get parts for.
Right.
We've looked for over 6 months for parts. We can't get them. We can then put these mechanisms in after the discharge valves. Again, you're looking at a minimum of $8,000 a pop. Is there a way to do all these valves and check valves? Yes. That doesn't do anything about these.
Right.
Right.
So,
Now, let me ask you a question, Art.
Yes, sir.
If you got the check valves all in and you can stop the flow, could you not then replace that section of pipe where those two pipes go in?
we can't, because that is, yeah, and sorry I didn't take a better picture. Bill, so this is heading north,
Yeah,
where everything goes through it. So all the pumps are stacked up behind it to the
I
south.
understand that, but
Yeah.
you can't stop the flow into that and bypass pump it for a day to replace that piece of pipe in there?
Well, and that's honestly, really what I want to talk about, is bypass pumping the station, taking these out, making all repairs at one shot. I don't want to touch electronics of anything. I don't want to do anything else. The only thing I would do, again, valves, either see if we can weld these up. If we can leave the pipe in, fantastic, right? We can weld them up if they can do that. If not, put a new spool piece in. I would like to put a flow meter on it. The station has no flow meter, and that will help us when we talk to the county and try to generate more, get some revenue back.
Yes.
I would also look at, the station does have a bypass hydrant out towards the road, except there is no valve to isolate the station.
Jeez.
Thank you. So all in all new mechanicals, pumps are good. If they need repair, we can do that in-house. They're good. New valves, new check valves. Do something with these pipes, flow meter. Ideally, put an isolation valve in that station for the future.
I think you need that.
The only wild card, and that's exactly what it is, are these intake
Yeah.
pipes going through the wall.
It's just-
Once they drain that wet well, then we'll truly see the condition of them. That being said, a piece of pipe isn't that expensive to unbolt the flange, hopefully slip a new one through. So, I don't see any reason to touch electronics. That's something we can plan for down the road. I wouldn't do anything else to it. It just updates the mechanicals. One valve has failed, again, they're 40-plus years old. I would hate to see just throwing, okay, go in and replace one valve.
Right.
Well, then call them back, do another one. And this isn't something we can do in-house,
No,
so.
I agree.
So
And
what
just-
you
just to-
have is you have one pump that is down and can't be repaired because the valve that isolates it is shot
Correct.
and not working. And then you have, on top of that, you have intake pipes. They're coming from the wet well to the pumps. Each pump has one, and those are leaking.
The one has leaked, we've stopped that as a Band-Aid
Yeah,
approach.
Band-Aid.
Yep.
But that needs to be repaired. And the other one is the pipes that charge the system with disinfectant or odor.
Whatever they did back.
Whatever
in
it
the day.
was.
Right.
Those are all rotted out, and that section needs to be removed and improved or eliminated. Those things can be eliminated, do you think?
Well,
Or are they in use now?
no, they're not in use.
They're not
We would
used.
eliminate those pipes. We would hopefully just patch the holes, if not, put a new spool piece in there. Take that piece of pipe out and put a new spool piece in.
So it's not simple, but I mean, it's pretty understandable, all the needs. My question is, how do you bypass that station?
You know, so,
With a
and
big pump.
a big
And a
pump.
big
And this
pipe.
is where,
No, not a
No?
big pipe, but just a big pump.
big
Just a
pump.
big pump?
And this is where, you know, I've been going round and round about this for probably the last month, and trying to think in my head, do we need to bring engineering in this? Don't we? Can I work with, this contractor or that contractor and make this happen? And this needs engineering because the amount of flow. The contractors are going to need exactly know what flow, what they need for bypass, and all that. So we need to bring in an engineer for this. For the mechanical part, for the valves, no. But to bypass the station, we need an engineering.
Now, those are force mains that go up Vosburg Hill. Are they 6-inch or 12-inch? What
Oh,
size
bigger
pipe are
than
those?
that. Well, we're coming out at 24.
Yeah.
I think they're 12s.
Yeah,
They're 12s, two 12s, right?
212s, yep, side by side up the hill.
That are force mains.
Correct,
Okay.
Under pressure.
under pressure.
And so you need a pump,
I put them in. I saw them.
did you? So you need,
At that station? Well, when was that?
I lived right on the corner when they were
70s?
coming right through.
Is it 70s?
Sometime in the 70s, I think.
where are you working for?
I was working for MRB.
MRB or Hershey?
Well, it's Hershey Malone.
Yeah, okay. So they actually, you can actually bypass this, we can do that,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that operation. Oh, yeah, yeah. I know they've had a lot of issues when this was built. They had a lot of issues with air in the lines, hammering.
That was part of it.
So there's air releases up, halfway up that hill, which are rotted off.
What?
It was designed for
No, they're
air
rotted
releases
off.
on the pipe,
Yeah.
the force main pipe.
I didn't hear what you said.
They only
rotted
worked-
off.
Only worked for so long.
The air release valves in the ground are rotted off.
They were shot.
That's nice.
Because I remember Mike and Dave that having to do something with this because it was driving the residents crazy with the hammering. You'd get a vibration in the houses from it.
So just to clarify for everybody, this has nothing to do with the upgrades to our sewage treatment plant. This is strictly collections, correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
Absolutely correct.
It's maintenance.
Yeah.
It is maintenance.
It's maintenance.
Yeah, it's maintenance.
It's been 40 years.
So the request is
I hate
to allow
tell you
us
this,
to,
Bill, you said 70s, now you're pushing 50 years.
Yeah, all
It might
right.
have been 50.
I mean, it's
Trying
2021.
to think how long I've been out of work, retired.
See, Bill, you should have played this when I said, well, where were you working? Well, I was in second grade when I was working on this. That would have been the way to do it, Bill.
so I mean, if you think about it that way, I mean, I had estimated it 40 plus, figure 45, 50 years. Those valves, the town has got their money out of those valves,
Oh, yeah.
without a doubt. They were great valves that they put in back then. Unfortunately, my fear is replace one, go to
Might
the
as
next
well.
one, go
No.
to the
So-
next one, go to the next one.
Absolutely.
Might as well.
I mean,
While you're
yeah.
there.
I had the advantage, so did Paul, that we were out there last Friday with Patty and toured it, and, you know. But the pictures, you did a great job explaining it. And so do you want, if I understand correctly, that we do propose a resolution at next week's regular board meeting to go out to RFP for engineering services?
Correct.
Would you be writing that RFP, like the details of it?
I would definitely be writing the scope,
Okay. I mean,
and that'll allow us to get, you know, their, obviously the engineer's cost to look at this and do their work, which would then drive us into what their engineer's estimate to do this work is.
okay.
So you have valves there that need to be replaced, and there's really no maintenance to those valves.
No,
It's
the
just
only
a valve, and
maintenance
then it works until it doesn't.
They operate.
is exercising them, exactly.
Right.
They work until they don't anymore.
Pretty much. Yeah, and it's not like the guys, you know, went down there once and gave it a shot. We've done everything we could.
Yeah.
We belted them with a sledgehammer, and they're not. It's not moving.
How'd you make out with that ring that you were trying to
So
make locally?
yeah, so in pump number 3, is having an issue. About 2 weeks ago, the guys were able to pull it off, and on the bottom of the impeller, on top of the volute, there are wear rings. They're rings about that diameter. They're actual rings. They're very thin. One of them blown apart and taken the other one with it, pretty much like gouging the rotor in your car brakes. I reached out to the vendor. Each ring was $3,200. So, I was telling Barry earlier, in the last year or so, we've gotten very, very close with one of our employees' fathers. He's a machinist. We're like, okay, we found a used one, took it to him, tried to mic it, built us 2 rings for $400 a piece. We put them in the other day. Unfortunately, they were a little too thick. Not a wasted gamble by any means.
No.
I have now overnighted, second day aired, 2 from the factory. They should be here tomorrow. We'll take those factory rings back to the machinist. He can get the measurements on it. We'll put the new ones from the factory in. We'll get number 3 up and running. And then we will have rings made for number 1 and 2 at a fraction of the cost. I was willing to take that gamble. The gamble worked when we epoxied that pipe for a Band-Aid. I'll gamble $800 over $6,200 or $6,400 all day long. And I think it's going to work out for us.
Okay.
Nice move, Art.
So, if I understand, resolution next week, Patty knows all about this, so she's not missing anything here tonight. Hopefully the board has enough information that the resolution will have little to no questions next week. It goes out to bid, or for proposal come back, then the board has to.
It won't go out to bid.
To proposal,
It's an what I call an RFQ.
yeah,
We'll send it out.
right,
We'll send it out
yeah,
to the engineering firms that we know
yeah,
we work with. It'll allow us to sort of spread the wealth, see some engineering firms, ones we've worked in the past we feel comfortable with, that we haven't seen in a while,
yeah.
and get some quotes from them.
Okay.
At that point, we'll bring the quotes back to the board. And,
Does
sure.
anybody on the board have any problems with us getting that on the agenda?
Not at all.
next week?
Thank you very much, Art. Great explanation.
All right, thank you, Arthur.
Thank you for your time.
All right, I'm at part 2. You know, I have my report. Did you bring another report for everybody?
I have extras in case.
Thank goodness, because I don't know.
I got mine.
I have mine.
Do you have yours?
I got one in here somewhere.
Okay, good, because,
I thought I had, here, I'll take one. Thank you.
I got it somewhere. Nope, I got that.
I'm good.
I'm good too.
I didn't run this one through the shredder.
do my best to not keep you here for too long. I know we've only got an hour left, so we'll be efficient.
What did you say?
I just want to see if he's paying attention. That's all. It's really
to be done in 2 minutes.
I just want to see if he's paying attention.
Art is still here? Huh?
I mean, he can go, right?
He's here to listen.
Oh, these guys are interested.
This is,
Huh? Are we on page 5?
well, let's just, yeah, I'm not sure where we left off, but,
I have notes through page 4.
all right, so we got through finances, we got through what we did. Let's just kind of walking through that. And so at the top of page 5, we were talking a little bit about the help we need. I think is that where you're picking up, Tom?
Yes, because, when I say I got notes, I figured I'd wait till the end. Some of them are questions. So we'll wait till the end.
So, we have talked about NEQ funding in this room with some of the same faces and some new faces for the last, at least for me, the last 15 years that I've been coming to board meetings for NEQ. And, it's a question people ask, why should we support this agency versus another, et cetera, et cetera. It's a question that you have asked since day one. And, the reality is that, there are a lot of businesses to support out there. We, unlike others, are an essential service, I think, in the town, though the state doesn't recognize us as such yet. But we provide a service that, without us, people don't go home, right? People get sick and things happen. And you could say, well, raise your rates. And so tonight, because you're a data man, Tom, I actually took the liberty of grabbing something. Every couple of weeks, I get letters from our billing company that I can't share with you because of HIPAA. But I get these letters, and basically what it is when somebody calls and says, I can't afford my bill, we ask them to go through the indignity of proving it. So we say, you have to send me your tax returns, you have to write us a letter. And the reason is because we bill Medicare and Medicaid, which are federal insurance, we have to treat everybody the same. So people have to sit down and explain to us why they can't pay it. Then we give it to the billing company, there's a scale. So can you or can't you, can we reduce it to some percentage, or do we write it down to 0? And so, when you say, why do we need help? First response agencies aren't always on jobs, right? There are days we take a lot of calls, there are days we take no calls. But you always want us to be there ready to take calls. There are fixed costs that don't go away, whether we take a call or not. And at the current model, at least in Webster, we're 100% reliant, with the exception of a small amount from the town of Penfield and Webster, but we're 100% reliant on people paying their bills. The challenge is, unlike the water company or the town or whatever, if you don't pay your bills, there's collection actions that happen. You shut off the water, you shut off the power, Time Warner goes away, no more internet. You know what, you call me 5 times, I have to show up 5 times. And if you never pay me, I have to show up the 6th time and the 7th time. And we've had these cases. And so I just would like, for a moment, I won't take long, I want you to hear some of the things that we get. So this is a person that owes $1,425. We've been there twice. 84-year-old, limited income, cannot afford to pay anything. We'll write it down to 0. Here's a person that owes $200. I have limited income and can't afford to pay the medical bills. They've given us very limited information beyond that, but what do you say? Here's someone that owes us almost $2,000. I don't have a 2020 W-2. I know our income is a bit higher, but we have a high deductible insurance, so it didn't cover any of this. We also have hospital bills from this episode that had to be put on payments, so I'd appreciate any discount available. Based on the income they gave and the federal wages, we will take the $2,000 and write it to 0. Here's another one, $175 and $180. My husband has been out of work since March 2020. We have no unemployment. We have only SSI of X dollars a month coming in. When the husband goes back to work, he does only 24 hours a week as an hourly employee somewhere. We owe $37,000 in medical bills for 4 months in rehab. We have no medical insurance to pay for everything. We will take that $400, write it to 0. We have another one. I'm currently unemployed and in financial burden. My partner called the ambulance because I was in pain and I needed it. Blah, 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 $1,000. And here's another, last one. I have no medical insurance and approximately a $10,000 annual income. My income is below the level to file a tax return, so I've given you the best proof of income I have. So in those few letters, there's $6,000 we write off. That is more than 10% of what the town currently gives us. That's 6 letters right there. I get these every 2 weeks. Last year, almost $150,000 we wrote off. We're not a charity, can't afford it, right? We live literally hand to mouth, and I joke, but it's not a joke. Every other Sunday, I wonder, can I make payroll, right? Can I pay the fuel bills? I've got an ambulance, 1739, that's been broken for 7 weeks. It's in parts, I can't get it back together. So my 6 is down to 5, we get a snowstorm, we have 2 accidents, my fleet doesn't run, right? Yesterday, we put 4 ambulances on the road because we had crews stay over and we grabbed calls, paramedics jumped on ambulances, 4 ambulances ran on the road to cover. Today, we were the only ambulance up between Penfield, Webster, Arundecoit, Brighton, Gates, and Rochester. We were the only ambulance up. And it's because 2 people came in to hop on the rig. What are we doing when we're out of ambulances? Right?
Wow.
But we can't do this forever. And so the question of why do you support an agency like this? The answer is because you can't afford not to. We can't do this forever. Right? We're running out of things. If we had not had payroll protection in 2020, we wouldn't be here right now. I can tell you that without a doubt. We would, if the federal government hadn't stepped up and helped us, because as we told you, in April and March, our calls went to 0 days. Fixed costs didn't change. We kept our staffing up. The rent had to get paid. The town wanted their gas money for the ambulances, right? The insurance had to get paid, but we had no income. It's not we didn't have income in March. Guess what? June, July, we didn't get income, and then we hit these things. And what do? Do you say, sorry, we're not going to come to your house? This is every day, right? And I wanted you to see these because I know I don't share this data with you, but some of these things are heartbreaking. And what do we do when we go to the door? We have to take care of the patients, right? So the alternative could be, well, we're not going to have any Q and Webster anymore. It's always a choice, right? Life is all about choices. We fix a pump, we don't fix a pump. You're going to wait for someone coming from Bridge and Lake. You're going to wait for someone coming out of Brighton. You're going to wait for whatever. The one thing I will take pride in as long as I walk in this town is that we have cut response time down by minutes, and minutes matter. When people are in pain, when people are having difficulty breathing, when they need to get treatment. And so that is why we need to find a different solution, right? And this is why, Supervisor, when you and Councilman Cahill and I met the other day, you got it so right. You understand the model, and you understand the risk to us, right? We are in a situation where the state gives us no money. The CARES Act funding?
Right.
Police department's got it, fire department's got it. They reduced their calls in COVID. School districts, they got it, right? Towns got it, thank goodness for the town, right? $500,000. EMS, $0 in the state of New York. Not a penny, because we're all private entities.
Ahmed, what's everybody else doing?
All right, so, Mr. Dean, I don't have, oh yeah, I left it in my car. Henrietta, almost $1 million for their ambulance. Brighton, I think it was $400,000. They buy them a new ambulance every other year. They buy it and turn it
When
over.
you say Henrietta, $1 million, what's that mean?
So they create a special use district. So we understand, we are not an entity in the state of New York in the eyes of the state. We cannot create a district. So people say create an ambulance district. You cannot, right? We're not like a fire district. Those are things that are legally defined in statute. So what we do, and we have this in Penfield for NEQ, is we create a special use district, like your lighting districts, your sidewalk districts, your sewer districts, and they give some percentage of the tax base. So I think in some cases it's 20 cents, some cases it's 30 cents, but they basically allocate as a line item, and the town board becomes the ambulance commission, right, and helps us set the rate. They collect the fees, and then we get it. So it's like a fire district, but in this case, the town becomes the district.
What does the town of Penfield do?
So the town of Penfield gives us, I can't remember the rate per thousand, because we cover the northern part of the town of Penfield, the northwestern part. We get 25,000. I can't remember what the rate is, Barry. It's in the pennies per thousand. And that's all they give.
Are all the other agencies in the same boat as you?
Well, it's very
Except
funny.
for the ones that are being...
Yeah, it's binary. It's very interesting. You have some that are getting literally $1,880,000, 400 and some. I mean, significant dollars
From the taxpayers?
from the community, right?
Right.
And then you have others in Arundecoit, which literally get zero, and same problem. You know, the town of Arundecoit, Tom is having the same meeting with their town, saying we can't do this anymore, right? We have a huge area, and their model is different. So the revenue stream, which we'll walk through very quickly. The revenue models are, you bill a patient, you get the fee for that, you get some mileage, right? You get some government insurances. So Arundecoit doesn't have a lot of mileage. They're very close to their hospitals, right? They have a high percentage of people 65 and over, a ridiculously high percentage. So their situation, in a way, is even more dire. What I think makes their models a little different, and Penfield is a great example, they still rely heavily on volunteer EMTs. That doesn't exist in Webster. Doesn't exist in Rondequin anymore, right? And so the staffing, that's our biggest expense is labor, right, as you can imagine. And so without having the labor subsidized through volunteers, you know, it puts you upside down very quickly.
What are the companies that like work for the city, the ones that used to be competitors, used to come in there,
AMR? Yep.
What do they do?
They hemorrhage. They're bleeding. I mean, AMR, if you remember, when we did the CON, they owed the city $1 million, remember?
They owed the city.
They owed it because they weren't getting the response time, and they finally said, we're not gonna run they literally, I think, I can't speak in complete confidence, but my understanding is they basically said, either you take these penalties away, or why should we pay you to provide a service? You should give us something. So they've worked that out of the contract. But they're having the same problem. AMR nationally has walked out of towns. California, in the Midwest, they just said, we can't afford to be here. And they walk away, right? But they're a for-profit business, right? I can't walk away from here. What do I do, right? What will we do here? And, you know, who's going to cover us? I mean, we have, if we were, you know, a few hundred calls a year, you'd say, well, Penfield will pick it up, Rondequin will pick it up. We have 6,000 calls last year. We're one of the biggest in the county now. No one's going to pick us up, right? Not without a lot of pain. And why should they, right? We give $13.5 million in this community to fire and police. We're just asking for, and we're not asking for $13 million, right? But if you, I did the math, and I wish I'd been a little bit more, my memory was better, but if we did 20 cents per thousand, which is a fraction of what the fire departments in the other districts around here get, 20 cents per thousand, that puts almost $500,000 into our budget. That $500,000 changes our trajectory tremendously. It's not a big burden to, I mean, in my house, I know I'm in Penfield, but my house, I paid almost $300 in fire tax last year.
Yeah,
What's the fire department in 21 years?
what's West Webster's tax rate right now? Isn't it like two something?
I think it's just under. I think it's $1.80.
$1.80 per thousand.
And this side, I think, is not far
Right.
away.
Right.
So we're asking for 20 cents, right? Not a huge amount of money.
No.
But what it does, so we're not asking to cover our whole budget. We're asking us for breathing room, right? If it's $400,000 or $500,000, basically what we got in payroll protection last year, that kept us whole, right? If we get another pandemic, all of our costs have gone up. We're trying to keep good employees. You know how that is. That comes with money, right? You can't be the lowest paying employer and get the quality employees.
Right.
We have employees. Yesterday, I was on my way to a dinner, and I got a call from one of the people at 6:30. Hey, Ahmed, can we order pizza? I'm like, what's going on? He says, you'll be so proud of us. We got slammed in the evening. We covered every call. People came in and grabbed an ambulance. That is the pride you get in the town of Webster, and we are one of the lowest paying ambulance services out there.
Wow.
Our people are here because they care, right? They do a hell of a job, and we'd like to get them up to a standard where they're not all working 80 hours a week, right? EMS is the only first response industry, if you think about it, where retirement doesn't exist, right? You got cops. We have police officers in our town, 50 years old, they're retired, they're going to get pension, they're going to get benefits, they're gone. School teachers, firefighters, right? Some of my peers, same age, they're playing golf all day long, right? That doesn't happen in EMS because we can't afford to pay them what they deserve for this life-saving service they provide, right? A little bit of money from the town, we can't make up the gap, but we can certainly change the trajectory a little bit, right? And in the end, we cannot take another year like we did last year. We have no savings. Right? We finished 2019 with $14,000 in the bank. I showed Paul our books, you know, and people ask me, how do you survive? It's a balancing game every day, right? We should be able to save. We should be able to upgrade our equipment. You know, we paid $67,000 to put the electric stretchers in. Do you remember seeing them at the breast cancer awareness thing last year, right? We brought one in. But now there are things that you can push that in and we'll auto-load it in the ambulance. You're saving back injuries. You're saving drop patients, right? Our fleet is aged, right? We're using all third-hand ambulances. It'd be nice, you know, on a cycle, right? Kind of like Art is talking about maintenance. It'd be nice on a cycle to get ambulances at some frequency. We can't do any of that today. Today we just do our best with duct tape and bubble gum to keep the fleet going. And we've done a pretty good job, but we need help. We need help. And so that concludes my State of the Union update. And I appreciate you giving me a little time. Are there any questions about that? Yes? Yes? All yours.
But Barry, you've asked a lot. Barry, I don't want to jump ahead of Bill or John or I'm going to go backwards, starting with tonight's, the fresh. The 6 letters that you read, and I appreciate you didn't give names and whatever because of HIPAA. Before you put them away, are all 6 in West Webster?
East side and west side. I pulled 2 and 2.
Okay.
other half. So, thank
right.
you, that was a good question.
On page one that you went over last, 2 weeks ago with us, or whatever it was, when I look at the call data, and I'm gonna just go to 2020, Nequals has 3,051 calls, and WEMS has 3,048 calls, all right? We have two questions. One, every call I thought had a WEMS component to it, because that's the basic ambulance driving out there.
On that side of town.
Okay, and that might answer it because these WEMS calls don't include the West Webster basics, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so does everybody know what I just asked and what he meant by answering it doesn't include the West Webster?
No.
Okay. Can I take
I
a shot at
think
this?
I do, but I'd like to hear it explained.
West Webster Fire District essentially runs an ambulance service.
Right.
Northeast does not.
Okay.
But West Webster Fire Service has decided to outsource their ambulance service to Ahmed's company. So, for contract details I won't get into at this meeting, for every call that comes into West Webster Fire Department for ambulance, which I take it that they're first on the rate card there,
For that side, yep.
okay? Every single one of those calls, for the most part, is handled by his staff. Now, when the 911 operator vets the call, they may say, ooh, that needs a little bit more sophisticated service, so that's probably these 3,051 NEQUAL calls,
Well, a portion of it, yeah.
right?
Well, because some go.
Not all 3,051, but
Right.
some of those, all right? Did that make sense, Barry? So, I don't know. I don't have my NEQUALs and West Webster thing, but I think last year in West Webster you got basic calls of like 1,600.
17 and change, yeah.
Okay.
Good number.
So really, WEMS, basic ambulance service, had about 4,700 calls last year.
Okay, the 1,700 for West Webster's
And
on top.
3,051 of those calls were assessed by the 911 operator to need one of his fly cars from Nequals. Does that make sense? Okay. The reason why I asked the first question before about tonight of where were those write-offs in West Webster is I think Ahmed would agree that he has been consistent with Councilman Cahill and me that West Webster is where he's getting crushed on these write-offs. All right?
What's the reason for that?
Because West Webster Ambulance cannot bill the patient. They're a fire district ambulance, so by law, they cannot bill. So what happens is we have to bill the patient directly. And so when you do that, you get these letters. If it's a Medicaid patient, we can't bill them legally at all because Medicaid doesn't recognize ALS intercept. So overdoses, diabetics, certain other calls that we pick up, that's just charity work, disappears. Not even a bill generated, it's a write-off. And then Medicare and people with high deductibles and other things, they get the full NEQ bill, and then we get these letters.
I think John Cahill and Ahmed are scheduled to go before the West Webster Board next,
Fire commission. Yeah.
commission
Next
next
week.
Wednesday night. That's, I guess, the first discussion. It's not, we were hoping that we would have a one-on-one with them, but they have asked it to be more in their, almost like a board meeting type of thing to the public.
Yeah.
And John and Ahmed are going to that. But I hope what spawns off of that is that, I don't know how else to say it, at least from the research I've done and sitting down with Ahmed, and he's been very transparent and giving every question I've asked, he's given answers to. And the only thing I can say, and I appreciate he came in and he gave a lot of great stats tonight, and he, the town's gotta help, the town's gotta help, the town's gotta help. He may be very right, but in my opinion, West Webster has to help too. And I wanna see how that goes. So if people are
Yeah.
firefighters in West Webster are watching this and they're like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. You'll talk with Ahmed and
So
John.
you have two rigs
Next
at their
Wednesday?
house in West Webster?
We have two people, so we staff their ambulance. Right, we staff, so,
They have their own ambulances and you staff them?
right, okay, we staff their ambulance.
I'm not gonna get into any more details. I did, on page 2, I wanna ask, just so I understand, when you've got this percentage of calls, NEQ, the first 3 categories, Town of Webster, Village of Webster, Webster, 77% of your NEQual fly car are in Webster, and then the other 23% are in other places.
Right.
But when you look at WEM's call by scene grid, you got, the Webster ones are 94% in those, when you add up those first 3. Is this, once again, because of the West Webster factor?
Yes, exactly.
So
So
if you added in those 1,700 calls, on, that are, I'm gonna call them WEM's calls.
well, or just ambulance calls in general.
Ambulance
So
calls,
Ambulance
yeah.
calls in the town of Webster.
Right.
Total 4,700.
Okay. Okay, I didn't have, I got that as a note, what? Oh, the CARES thing, and I have a question here, with us having this, the CON, Paul, do you think the town can submit for CARES reimbursement for WEMS? For an equal?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We tried because you've
Yeah,
contracted.
I had a
service
discussion
out
with
to-
Matt Turp and George.
We asked.
Yeah.
You know, those are the only questions I have. You've convinced me over the last year that there's something wrong with the system. I mean, you've elaborated on it, you know, pensions, police, firehouses, taxing authorities, all that stuff. And you guys are like the ugly redheaded stepchild. And it is weird. And I don't quite understand. Maybe it's because years ago, volunteers in the fire departments did all the ambulance calls.
That and the funeral homes.
Huh?
Ambulance transport started with the funeral homes.
Okay.
Literally, because they were the ones with vehicles big enough.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, something changed over the years. Obviously, Northeast got out of the ambulance business. Northeast here in Webster.
Union Hill. Northeast Joint Fire District.
Northeast,
They were never in it.
they were never in it.
They were never in it.
Okay.
Fire
Right.
departments had a choice. Do you provide the service or not? So that the law reads that the town gets to decide who provides it. In the absence of the town, the fire districts have the option to provide it. And so some fire districts did it, like West Webster, because they had people that were interested and they could do it. Webster Fire, before they became, never did. They were never interested. Union Hill picked it up on that side. Ontario picked it up on the other side in Penfield. And they just
Okay.
never did. So it was a choice.
I'm intrigued. You might not know that Arundequoit, you use them as an example.
Yep.
They got 5 fire districts, right?
5 fire
Yeah.
districts.
How many of them do ambulance?
St. Paul did. They've given it up, I think. Is it Barnard in the north? I think they do ALS first response.
Yeah, there's Point Pleasant, there's.
Seabreeze still has an ambulance.
Ridge Culver.
Rarely goes.
Laurel.
Yeah, so Laurelton doesn't have one. Seabreeze still has an ambulance. Seabreeze or Point, one of those two I always forget.
One of them is tiny as
Right,
can be,
it's like a 2 acre or 2 miles. So I think it's Seabreeze has one. Rondequoit covers a lot of their calls.
Yeah.
And St. Paul gave theirs up. And then I think it's Barnard. They do fire department first response, but no transport. So it's really Monroe and Rondequoit covering Rondequoit.
Who's coming out of Laurelton?
Laurelton does, Rondequoit covers.
Sorry?
Rondequoit ambulance covers Laurelton.
Right,
Yeah.
but there's a substation right there on Pardee Road. Or Des, not Pardee, Densmore.
Hollandale, I know where you're talking.
That's Empire and Hollandale is Laurelton's fire station.
This little.
Hellendale, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's their main fire station.
Okay. Like I said, let's keep in contact throughout this year. It's February. There is something wrong, and I think it's above my pay grade to figure out how it should nationally get fixed, and if they don't, you know, the hospital systems and whatever. But I also, I've tried to be very candid with you that I also don't know if the town of Webster budget should do the whole subsidization, especially with all the details I know about what you got going on in West Webster. So I hope that as the year goes on, you get through your first meeting over there next Wednesday, and if we can then sit down with some people that are in leadership at West Webster Fire Department and see if we can figure this out for the citizens. I really hope we can.
I'm sure we'll find a way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say, actually, 'cause
Oh, at the end of the day, you're our ambulance.
I'm sorry?
At the end of the day, you're servicing Webster, and we need to support you.
The alternatives, we go away. I mean,
And that's not a reasonable
thank you.
thing to do.
I know that you guys want to get going. The last few pages in the packet, oh, sorry, did you have more questions before I?
No.
Okay. You had asked me in November to commit to you on camera that I would try and help explain ambulance billing.
I said the first word. I didn't say you commit to me, that we get together and figure out a way to explain to the citizens.
It is not easy, I have to tell you. And so I would just ask, and maybe we'll have another opportunity to do this or we can do it offline, but I tried to give you a few slides with the help of some of my other EMS leadership colleagues of how to do it. I gave you some examples of a lift assist, a chest pain call, a cardiac arrest call, shortness of breath, overdose, and I want you to see, they're almost all negative calls, right? We lose on all of these because the supplies don't get reimbursed at the right rate or people don't pay. So let's look through it. It will be a start, I think, for what you were looking for, and we can refine it when you're ready. But if the community is interested and we want to do like an open forum and people to talk about the ambulance and the billing, I've always been willing to do it. We've tried to do a few, no one ever comes. So.
And you know what's kind of, and maybe this is overly simplified, okay? Back in the day, when the fire department did ambulance, it was either all volunteer, or if the fire department was a taxing district, to sit there and say that, hey, I never had to pay for an ambulance. No, you did. You paid for it in your fire district taxes, right?
Yep.
Now all of a sudden they're out of it, this and that, and all of a sudden, okay, so we'll just move this over to the town, basically paying for the ambulance. I find that an interesting move. And that's probably oversimplified. But nothing comes for free. It's just the manner in which you're paying for it. And so I'm also, as we go down through this year with West Webster and all that, you know, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about some thinking outside the box, you know, I don't know. I won't get
Well,
into that.
I think the services are a lot more extensive and sophisticated now too than they were even 10 years ago.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, the days of scoop and run is
Yeah.
over. I mean, we are now providing emergency room level
You're
care.
providing medical
The costs
care
are,
right
I mean,
now, yeah.
a monitor that we're trying to replace a few of, they're almost $45,000. We have 6 of
For a
them.
cardiac
Are
monitor,
you
right?
still doing the
45 grand.
electronic town meetings?
Oh, actually, come on. You're my straight guy. We're doing the, we're starting on,
That would be a great place to
February
start.
24th.
That would be, yes, right, that would be a place for Ahmed or whoever he wants to
Yes.
have do it, but to make a presentation.
well, we're trying to
That
do
would be on-
COVID-friendly
on
at
record
first,
then.
and it's just Barry and
People watch it
I,
at their convenience.
and not 5 people on the dais, but they'll evolve. Charlie, this might be a legal question, and I'm not trying, if people are watching, I'm not trying to tick off fire districts, all right? How is it that a fire district can be out there with the boot at intersections, and I'm a sucker, I always put the $20 in there, but those are probably not volunteer fire districts, they're just getting additional fundraising.
No, you're not giving it to the district, so you gotta be very careful. So the fire district, it owns, sorry, Charlie, do you mind?
No, I don't know the answer, I don't know the answer.
I know the answer.
You're lawyer.
Same thing. I do
Sorry.
well,
No,
yeah.
but the fire district owns the apparatus, owns the building, owns the equipment. The Firemen's Association is a volunteer, nonprofit association that provides free staffing to a volunteer fire company. So what you're putting your dollar in the boot for is a volunteer firemen's association. And what they do with that money is they will do, you know, if there's a prolonged fire and the women's auxiliary comes, they'll give food Food has to get paid for it, right? No one in this town donates that. Food gets paid for it. If, firemen want to get a nice winter jacket, they'll sometimes help subsidize that. We have an association building that we built behind West Webster Station 1. The Webster Fire Department has a building in the middle of the village. You pay for that. You use it for firemen's functions and things like that. So that money goes to the association, which is a staff that the district uses for free.
Okay.
Right? So you're staffing, you're
Well,
fooding
you
the
might have-
association.
I was gonna say, why can't you with your ambulance hold a bedpan?
Yeah,
At the,
we thought about that. That's the bedpan. But I didn't want to take Art's business. It was still from Art.
Okay. By the way, is Chris Bilo out there? Very interesting. Okay, because, if he is not out there, we're over. Then we, my friends, have completed this workshop. Thank you for everybody who attended and watched at home.